Okay, officially starting Fire Session number 5. We are warming up for our Design Leadership Season 2 that is going to be starting in March. So today we are going to be discussing how designers must transform and thrive leading organizations in a changing world. We have Maria Edwards from Woolies X, Senior UX Design Manager, Econ and New Business. We have Rich Brophy from the New South Wales Department for Customer Services, Principal Service Designer and alumni of Season 1. Maria was also one of our workshop leaders for Season 1. And we have Michael Tam, Global Design Director from IBM iX, and he was our Global Masterclass leader, and myself, Juliana Proserpio, founder of Echoes and Chief Design Officer. So thank you everyone for joining us on this Fire Session. If you haven't already, please write in the chat which city you're joining us from. We always love to know where you are joining us. And a little bit about me, I'm gonna be your MC today. And I am an entrepreneur. I founded Echoes 10 years ago. I am now the Chief Design Officer. Echoes, I'm going to be explaining a little bit longer what it is, but basically I have more than 10 years of experience working in the design of invisible things. Let's say that it's more about strategy and services and digital products. And what is Echoes? If you don't know us, Echoes is this innovation lab driven by design. We work designing desirable futures, and we have 3 business units. Echoes is School of Design Thinking, Echoes Innovation Projects, and Echoes Ventures. At the Innovation Projects, we help businesses create value and innovation for good. And at the School of Design Thinking, where the design leadership, of course, is hosted. The School of Design Thinking, we help people and organizations master the innovation mindset, skills, and tools. So we are a global organization. We are in different locations. Now we are more than in these 3 locations. We're also in the US. And crunching the numbers, in case you don't know, is a little bit of our tracking record. We have more than 40,000 participants who participate in our course. We have more than 150 projects developed around APAC, Latin America, and also a little bit of North America. And I wanted to introduce us a little bit also about our program. So that's why I think we are all here. The Design Leadership is our first global program from the School of Design Thinking. We had Season 1 last year in 2021, and we launched as this global program where you can learn from top global leaders, such as these 3 amazing panelists that are here with me today, and reach the next step of your design leadership. So in the Design Leadership is an online program where you're going to be joining a cohort and a group of design leaders who are coming from different parts of the world. And you're going to be having access to 12 global live masterclasses, 12 regional live practices, and being part of one global network. It was, we had our debut last year. We had Season 1. It was very successful. We had 150 participants, and then we are repeating this year again in Season 2. So you're going to be having access to really some amazing design executives and leaders from different locations, working in the best companies around the world and giving their insights on how to become and how to be a better design leader. I think one of the things that was most surprising about the program last year is that we had very different opinions and very different approaches to what design leadership means and how you go about it. So you can learn from these different perspectives from different regions as well around the world. So there is a lot of different mindsets and different, let's say, contexts of how you can lead design in different, let's say, regions, organizations, the type of organization that you're in, or if you're in a small, medium, or large, let's say, organization as well. So on this Season 2, it's a 12-week journey. On week 1, you learn about design leadership. Then we have minimum viable competencies for becoming a design leader. Then you're going to be learning about articulating the value of design, service design as a new management tool, creating high-value products, digital products, learning more about facilitation as a leadership skill, shaping diverse teams and cultures, designing ethics and impact, and decolonizing design. I think this is a big topic nowadays as well. Shaping organizations through design ops. This is with Peter Merholtz. He is coming back again for season 2. And we also have, you're also going to learn about creating a future vision, new technologies, pushing boundaries, and the paths for you as design leaders. So this program is really for design leaders, and how you can mature as a design leader. How can you kind of go in your steps to becoming a better design leaders every day, and how we design the program was really about understanding how you can be a better design leader from the perspective of you learning about yourself. What is your purpose? How can you know yourself? How you can understand your strengths and flaws? So these will help you build your next steps in design leadership. But also, how can you be a better design leader by the relationship that you build with others? How do you give feedback? How do you hire and manage to create great design teams? How you build design culture? So it's about shaping and managing design teams. And you also have these two other pieces of design leadership that is about you leading products and services. So how do you create better and amazing digital products? How do you learn about the future of service design and where is it going? How do you manage the lenses of service design? And basically how to get excellence into the last mile of design. So kind of getting out a little bit of the strategic part of design and going a little bit more into the last mile. And then lastly, the last, let's say, framework for our program is about you and systems. So learning about design ethics and impact, systemic design, design organizations and design ops, and how do you articulate the value of design. So in each week, you can see you're going to be navigating these competencies in this framework. So you're going to be learning kind of in circles about all of these frames from the design leadership, and you're going to be having a very comprehensive understanding of what it means to be a design leader, but not only how it means putting practice, how can you elevate your maturity, and how can you be a better leader. So this was all the global masterclasses for season 1. And we have, these ones are going to be repeated. And then we have some new amazing global masterclasses who are joining us that we're going to be launching this week. I cannot say it yet, I'm sorry, but we're launching the next one, the other ones who are going to be joining us for season 2. We are always kind of making it very fresh and bringing new content. So I think it's interesting because we can see how design leadership evolves as well through time. And then I'm going to stop talking a little bit about the course, but in case you have any questions about the course, please feel free to ask and kind of put in the chat, reach out. We can answer, either me, Sophie, or someone from our team will come back and send you an email with the answers. So the course will start on March 14th and will go up until June the 11th. The Global Masterclasses happens on Mondays, either at 6 a.m. or 7 p.m. New York time. It means either 8 a.m. or 7 p.m. Sydney time. And you can watch it live or you can watch it recorded after the Global Masterclasses. The Global Masterclasses, the whole cohort comes together, all the regions together. But we also have the local workshop that happens on Wednesday. So it's only your smaller cohort of your region, where you kind of create more intimacy, interact more, and share what are your struggles in your kind of situation, what are your next steps, and kind of apply what you have been learning with the global masterclasses within your practice, in your, let's say, approach and in your context. So we have these 2 moments that are very important as part of this global masterclass, or more inspirational global masterclasses, and something that is more practical and with a more intimate, let's say, a cohort where you can share and discuss things. So now I'm gonna stop talking a little bit, and I want to start to bringing in our amazing panelists. So we're going to be discussing our biggest learnings here. And before we jump into the questions, I just wanted to ask these amazing panelists, Maria, Rich, and Michael, to introduce yourselves to the cohort before we jump in, because I think you're going to be introducing yourselves much better than I would. So Maria, could you maybe start introducing yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Juliana and Sophie. As Juliana has mentioned, I work with Woolies X here in Sydney, Australia. My role and support is to support the 20 odd team members working across e-com and new business. It's an exciting place to be within food and retail. Have been with the organisation for the past 4.5 years, and constantly a day goes by, particularly now in the state of demand and groceries and convenience, that we're not supporting and providing essential services to our community. So it's been a really rewarding time, and this course and the learnings from this has been definitely complementary and added value to what I bring to the team through the whole process. So I'm really excited to share and also ask any questions and with the fellow speakers here, with Michael and Rich and all you lovely people on the call.
Cool. I'm Rich. I'm a principal service designer in the New South Wales Department of Customer Service. I work with a team that basically pulls in effective practice from across New South Wales government and then turns that into guidance, products, resources that other designers, developers across government use to ship great products and great experiences to New South Wales citizens. I also run a legal design consultancy on the side because I have trouble focusing on just one thing at once.
Nice. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm part of the global design team at IBM iX, which is the consulting arm, experience design consulting arm of IBM. I work remotely because part of this global team, global design team, I work remotely, helping a lot of I guess traditional enterprises to go through the digital transformation journey. And outside of work, I similar to Rich, I couldn't just hold on to just doing one thing. So I do a lot of mentoring, teaching, collaboration with startups. So that's what I do, keep myself busy. That's also keep my mind busy. But physically, I live between Hong Kong and New Zealand. So right now I'm in Wellington, New Zealand. So it's great to hear, to see a lot of you dial in from New Zealand as well.
Thank you, Maria, Rich, and Michael for accepting our invitation to come and to be panelists at this Firesession. It's really, really an honor to have you here. And they were also part of season 1. So one of the things that we're going to be discussing here today is about our learnings, because they were not only bringing content and sharing their experiences, but we were always learning in this. We all learn, like not only the participants, but also kind of like the global masterclasses, the workshops, the leaders who were there. We learned a lot. So I think this is a session where the first question that I wanted to ask is, what were your biggest learnings in the program that you'd like to share? So maybe Maria, you could be the first one sharing what were your biggest learnings in season 1 of the Design Leadership.
Yeah, I think the program itself, and as Juliana shared, and for those interested, you will take your own journey where you are at your career in your design leadership and have a level of expectation of where you want to come out and what you want to learn. So I'm at my journey where I really wanted to really focus on more business impact and value, which a lot of the masterclasses and the regional courses that we had talked about. So assessing where you're at was one of the biggest learnings, where you want to take your career as well. You have an idea of what you want to learn, and certainly measuring that business impact and value, particularly when you're working in whatever organization you're at, was one thing I really wanted to further continue learning and build on and make that impact for advocating for the team and where we were growing. And I think also the stories that a lot of the cohort have shared when we're going to those regional sessions, or even just in conversations, you're not alone, you're not doing this alone. And there's a lot of people out there in this global community who have the same concerns, the same issues, the same challenges that they're facing, whether it's a small, large, or enterprise business. And it's no fixed solution, but there are so many methods out there to help support your journey where you're at. And I just found a lot of impact when we were talking through it, and examples of which you will hear through the cohort and the community that's been created with this program. And then I think there's so many avenues to becoming a leader in your eyes, what you see it. And I think keeping important of what's important to you, your purpose. And I think that was the biggest thing, taking away that you'll always be on this journey. It's never ending. And I think everything that I've taken away from these talks and the conversations shared in between also helps you develop what that sense. It's always going to change in your eyes, but being a good leader will always mean where the context of where you're learning and how you're applying your leadership. So I think those big things were where I'm at and reflected how I'm doing and measuring that impact and value with where I'm at.
I'll jump in next if you like. So for me, I think probably the most interesting learning was understanding that transition from design practitioner to design leader, which is kind of where I'm at the moment, going from, hey, I know design inside out, to, hey, how do you manage teams and make sure that people actually care about the work that you're doing? And for me, it was really interesting hearing about the different ways that you pull people into the design world. And that's not to say they need to learn about design. We've all done that. We've taught enough people how to do design in a day, but actually show them the overlap of the world that you work in and their motivations, their goals, their progress. And yeah, so some of the interesting things, which I think like you guys probably want to hear about specifics, but like this idea of creating demand for design, not just being really good at your job. Like we're all really good at design, but the rest of the world isn't in our world. And so we need to show people the impact through real projects, real stories. I can't remember who talked about it. I think it was Stephen Gates talked about, find a team that is under-resourced, doesn't get love, but has a problem that kind of affects everyone, and work on that. Like, don't start with a big sexy thing, start with something small that's seemingly insignificant, and then like tell the shit out of that story. Make sure that everyone knows that you made an impact. Turn that team into advocates for the way that you work, because it's really easy to spend your time, hey, we've got a design process, hey, we're running these cool workshops, but like do what actually matters, like create some momentum within the organization, and people will kind of be pulled into that that current or that rip of design, I guess. For me, that was, yeah, that was great.
This question is interesting for me because last season I was hosting one of the global masterclass. So it's interesting to look at it from almost like from the other side, and seeing a lot of people who's really keen to learn, and also going through a journey like Rich just gone through, and of course Maria as well is transitioned from practitioner to a leader. How can you turn your craft skills, practical skills, into something more strategic? And for me, my learning is that while I have to embrace the ambiguity of coming up with a masterclass that talk about ambiguity and creativity, but at the same time also gave me a chance to go through the other master classes from other leaders. And what I've learned is that we are definitely at an age where everyone is learning. I think even the leaders, the way they convey the message, the key message they come to you is always, being a design leader is not about telling people what to do, but instead of listening and trying to understand the context and the situation of the challenges, and then you can come up with solutions. And I think all of those leaders are doing the same thing, and that's what I've taken from them. The sort of the undercurrent of a message. That's what I take from them.
Thank you, everyone. I think that there were many big messages and big learnings. I think we went through, I think it was really Stephen Gates who said that, Rich, about kind of creating demand for design and starting from like a team that has no resources. And I remember there was this discussion that Stephen was talking about, that we shouldn't talk about the design language, right? We should kind of omit the thing that we were doing design. And then Birgit said the absolute opposite of it, saying that we should be actually really saying that we're doing design, because it's important for us to kind of share what we're doing, share the story. I think that for me, one of the, I loved many lessons, but there was one thing that, some things that really stood out for me. One of them was about pushing the boundaries with Michael. He was talking about that. And in a way that when you push the boundaries, you need to understand what are your boundaries first, what is the envelope, and how you're going to be expanding it. So as a designer, as a leader, how do you push those boundaries within your team and maybe with your executives? How do you kind of know until where you can navigate, until where you can push and where you cannot push? It's a fixed boundary. I think this is very interesting, even working with experiments and things like that. I think the other piece that really stood out for me was the systemic design piece from Misha Carl. And she was talking about how she implemented and she helped to implement the systemic approach in Australia for the ATO, the Australian Taxation Office, and how design has becoming and has been used there and in many other places, like a language for innovation in a way that I thought it was very interesting. And on the other hand, I really loved as well the session from Peter Merholtz that we are repeating this year and in this season, about the different configurations of design teams in different types of organizations, from consultancies to big tech organizations, to government institutions, to medium-sized organizations that work with design. What are the different design orgs and the design ops that should take place? Because as leaders, as he says as well, we need to act as architects, as diplomats, and also as champions. So I think there was a fourth one that now I'm forgetting. But this part where we kind of shape as a leader, we start to shape our environment in a way, right? Not only we are leading people who are kind of above us, but we are kind of helping to shape the environment to make these things, and creating the design org and the design operations is one of those things. So this was essentially a very big learning for me. So I just wanted to jump in and kind of ask you the second question, that is about what were the highlights? Maybe I'll start this time with Rich, because you were a design leader, but you were also an alumni, and you were one of the most active participants. Thank you for that, Rich. So I just wanted to ask you, what do you think it was the biggest highlight for you in season 1 that you were like, okay, this really makes sense, or it was something that blew your mind or something like that?
There's probably two things that I could identify. One was just connecting with other people who are also in this transitionary period or are working as design leaders or in a design leadership role. And like, you go to these talks and it's like, yeah, cool, that's perfect advice, but I don't work in a perfect environment. But by speaking with all these different people in these different murky situations and talking about the advice we've got, or the guidance we've got, or the tools we were given, we started to understand how they would be applicable in the real world, which I think is a gap that a lot of presentations and training doesn't really broach. And so for me, yeah, seeing how my wonky little situation actually can use this stuff in a different way to someone else was really helpful for me. And the other thing that stuck with me, which is dumb and small, but one of the guys from Design It talked about creating metrics for success and aligning customer outcomes and business goals. And just the way he explained it in a very visual way, that I've worked a lot in that space, but when he talked about finding that intersection between those two, it just, something clicked for me. And I went from, I'm scared of ending up in a success measures workshop to, right, let's go. How are we actually, is that good enough? That kind of stuff. So for me, that was, yeah, surprising, really simple stuff, but also really like I don't know, it's like soft, warm, oh, it's okay, I am safe. I'm in a weird situation, but I'm cool. That was really surprising.
Thank you, Rich. Michael, do you have, and Maria, do you have any highlights that you'd like to bring?
For me, is the masterclass by what's her name? Birgit
Birgit Mager.
Birgit Mager. That's right. Having someone like her as I think she's the co-founder of the Service Design Network, right? And it just blew my mind because I think that has a lot of synergy with what I do at work, and with a lot of these traditional organization enterprises looking to transform, whether they are big or small. To be honest, there's so much complexity that we face nowadays as designers, whether you're a practitioner or a leader. And I think hearing, there's a network of people who are doing that, and the challenge that they face as well, also give me a lot of comfort as well, as to know that we all on the same boat, right? And it's okay to not to know the solution, and then this, whoa, sorry, my computer just dropped. Well, that's unexpected challenges like every day we face, right? And yeah, and I think it's good to know people are solving those problems, complex problems, just like we do every day. And yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Maria, would you like to add something, if you like?
Yeah, I think what Rich mentioned, and secondly, Michael as well, like Birgit Mager and the evolution of service design, having someone talk through that and give her experience was really, really valuable, particularly in the line of work we are at. Obviously, when you reflect on where you are in the journey and how you can apply all these new methods, it's refreshing to know no matter how far you are in your journey and years you've got, there's always a great refresher, a great point of view that someone will bring into it. And I think just learning from that, from Birgit Mager and the conversations around her masterclass, as well as I think Phil Batagas really opened my eyes to speculative design. No matter how we think we can forecast things, these tools that he spoke about really opened my eyes around how we can also measure that back, what methods we can do to apply it, because I think as naturally we're always looking forward, trying to solve problems, and it's a fantastic approach to kind of take on these learnings and apply them through the plausible design and reviewing that and forecasting that. And I think that's an exciting space to bring into your own tools and your kit and your learning, but also how energizing can it be to live in a world where we can think of such creative realms, and if we're pushing those boundaries, let's continue to look at what that could look like and not shield ourselves in a box and think about it, particularly in the climate that we live in. So I think those talks particularly, and I think Andy Polaine, I think I mentioned, like, wherever you are in your journey, it's always to get a second review of what you're carrying as a leader. Rich mentioned it earlier and an answer from transitioning, and all of us will transition, whether it's your career pathway or not, into craft or people leadership, but getting a second view and just pausing to know where you are at, what you're carrying along with you, and just understanding what your self-leadership would look like is really humbling, because often we don't think about it probably purposefully in the work we do, but just taking a note of what you're carrying, what your fears, your hopes are as you're trying to lead in craft or people is really a great exercise to kind of reflect on. So I think those are things I continue to pass on for the audience, and also just the team when I brought those back to the team.
Thank you, Maria, for highlighting Phil Batagas and Andy Polaine. They also were amazing masterclasses. I think that what the session from Phil was really interesting. He was talking about design future, speculative design, and how you can apply this for strategic work. I think that was really interesting. Kind of, you can use, for example, for your team, kind of set up the vision for the future and how it's going to be driving and helping you backcasting how you're going to be implementing that. how you can kind of push the boundaries in this way. That was really inspirational. I also remember that with a lot of, I really remember good memories. It was great learnings. And also from Andy about this transition, right? Because independently on where you are in your journey, if you are a rising design leader, even if you're already a design manager, becoming a design director, there is always like this other layer that is a big jump. And there is like a void in between that you don't know what you don't know, right? And you're always learning in these places, and you stay in a place where there is a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of discomfort as well. And this program, I think that's the thing. We're trying to kind of make you feel more prepared for those moments, and kind of jump in this kind of situations, kind of knowing and knowing more what to do and how to act. I think these are the key things that I think it's important, because we don't necessarily learn that in the traditional way of learning about design, or we are prepared and we're not prepared in a way. So I guess I'm going to be making just one more question for all of you. And then I'm seeing here in the chat, we have many questions. So please keep asking if you have more questions. So the other question that I wanted to ask is more about the topic per se of design leadership. So Michael, I'm going to start with you and then we can go around. But how designers must transform and shift mindsets and acquire new skills to become the leaders that organizations need to thrive in a changing world. We are, of course, in 2020 in a very different world that keeps changing. And as design leaders, we have never been needed as much needed as we are now. I think we were always needed. Maybe we are more in demand now, right? So there is a big demand, there is a big hassle, and people hiring design leaders, there is this kind of struggle to hire the best design leaders, and then everyone is kind of, there's a lot of people that are going up, but how do we as designers can really shift our minds and really acquire these skills to really be these leaders that these organizations need as a design leader?
I think there's a huge gap between those who are hiring designers and the expectation, and that gap from what they're expecting to what we offer as designers or design leaders, because I think that gap is the misunderstanding of what designer can do and the value of design. And I think a lot of the time, people would expect those who hire, those who are building these design teams, those who's hiring, still expect, all right, designers come in, you can transform our organization, very quickly, and flick of a finger, and then we can design beautiful experience, beautiful products. And then on the flip side, as you have designers who's coming in, they would be telling these people, well, we can do more than that, but then we need your help. We need to co-create together. We need to have this conversation together. And then suddenly that's mismatch of expectations. Someone expect you to come in to just give them things, to someone who come in and say, hey, let's work together. I think that is the biggest challenge. And I think as designers, design leaders, we need to recognize that gap, the expectation gap, and then we need to find the words, we need to find the articulation that could bring these people along so that they can understand actually what design is. And then of course this question you have in here also mentioned about the changing world, the complexity, the speed that everything is being involved with. So you almost like is trying to explain quantum physics to someone on a speed train, and then you're running at 100 miles an hour, and then their minds, their body is being pulled by all these different forces on different direction, and then you're trying to explain these things for them and trying to bridge the understanding alignment. I think that is the biggest challenge, and I think I think we need each other. It's not one leader who could transform everything. It's not just one leader who could, change a team and change the whole organization. We need everyone, which is why I think it's important that we all of us are continuously learning and trying to find those words and articulation together.
Maria and Rich, would you like to add anything to this question?
Yeah, I would say there is so much leverage in relationships, like how you build them, how you partner with them. Although it feels like we're going through already been a transformation. We were fighting for a seat at the table. And it was interesting as well to hear, because we have such a global cohort, it might be different, the level of, I suppose, maturity where design leadership expectation sits. And certainly I think it's still brewing here in Australia, my experience of it anyway, and certainly it might be a different point of view, but I certainly think there is so much leverage in making sure you are at your best, you know, being partners with those we need to actually partner with, and sharing design and the need to create that impact and sharing that with your partners. How does that look like? Because we can't build it alone. Whatever you're creating that value, whether it's a product or service or organizational design, I think there needs to be continuing development in that space when you're at your leadership level. And how do you perform every day to meet that? Learning about sales, learning about the business value of what you bring. I don't think that's a conversation that will end in our industry and in the light of our work. And I feel the next evolution of that might transition more into that, but we don't know. But I think if we're wanting to see our impact in organizations, we need to really step in and partner with those senior executives, understand our business in and out, and also be that guiding transition to what it can be with your partners in product or engineering or sales and marketing. And it's such an exciting time to be a designer. Like, this creativity you can push, the leadership that you can excel. There's no industry in the world right now that's crying more for that type of leadership and that creativity. And there's no shortage of the problems we're facing that require that social awareness, the social support to change that, and also the creativity and design leadership to make that impact. I would say it's an exciting time to be a designer and continue to lead in that space. Is the communication, the partnerships you make, and knowing your business in and out, whether it's small to large enterprise, is going to, you know, transfer us into further a role playing part of that strategic space.
Maria, may I just highlight something that you just said, because I thought it was very interesting. You were saying, look, you were saying that there is like a lot of challenges that are being needed the design help and the designers help. And then you were mentioning, because there are so much social context and things that needs to be solved. It's interesting because that's not usually what will be said that design does in, like, I don't know, if we were talking about 15, 20 years, we will be talking, it might have been perceived more as something more, let's say, in the first order of design that's more visual, but you were talking about the social construct of design. And I think it's very connected to what you were saying, you and Michael were mentioning before about building relationships. And I think this is also design, right? So designing these things and that's what leadership means in a way. That's why design leadership is so interesting, because it's kind of an intentional transformation as a leader, and how do you do this for and with designers as well. I thought that was very interesting, because usually I think that if we think, I know a few years ago, maybe we would not be using this language. Maybe we would if we were great designers, but now it's becoming more and more prominent in a way. Look, thank you for, I want to kind of bring the questions from some of our audience here, and we have some amazing questions. So I'm going to be bringing one question from Josephine, and I think Rich, if you are, I know that you dropped, but I think you were back. Hopefully you were back.
Yeah,
you are back. Okay. So I'm going to be asking that firstly to you, because I think it's connected to what you were saying before. So Josephine Zapier was asking, what are some of the steps when starting to transition from design practitioner to design leader? How do you move away from the doing of design work to the leading of teams and managing the relationship with clients, stakeholders, and etc.? Do you have any, I know that you were like learning a lot from this point of view as well. So do you have any wisdom or insights to share with Josephine here?
I guess the thing that I think is critical is going from thinking about what to do and where to go to really being able to step back and just hold that vision or hold that idea of what we're actually trying to achieve. Like your role is no longer to be the smartest designer in the room or necessarily to put the connections together. Like they say, like when you're the basketball coach, you still got to be able to slam dunk. Like don't lose your skills, but you almost need to have a more elevated perspective of what I like to do is have like a concept model that we're all aligned on, or a vision that we're aligned on, and just interrogate stuff through the lens of that, because that gives other people the space to do their best work and bring perspectives and thinking that you frankly don't have. That's the nice thing about being a leader, right? Is that you just create the space for even smarter people to come after you and do great work. And so I think for me, that's one thing, but that's small and simple. And if I had talked any more, I probably would be going beyond what I know.
Nice.
I find it interesting. People think about, I think it's normal. People think about there's a clear-cut line of transition. Like today I'm a practitioner, tomorrow I'll be a leader, right? It's never really that clear-cut. And I think one thing, just riding on what Rich was saying, like you need to have that sort of overview, that strategic view to add to the work. But then I also believe if you are a good designer, a good design practitioner, slowly, if you're trying to question yourself or you reflect on the work that you've done, you need to ask the question of, how can I sell it better, right? How can I do it better? How can I bring people to work together on the piece of work so that we can take the piece of work to a better place? And I think if you ask yourself those questions, and basically you start shifting from a practitioner to a leader, because you start asking those kind of strategic questions, whether it's to yourself or to your team. And I think that is how you start making that shift.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Rich. Maria, there is another question that I want to also pick here from the questions that we're receiving. I think that's going to be you, because I think it kind of taps into your experience by being a manager and kind of a leader at WillisX. So the question is from Katrina, and the question is, how important is senior or C-suite buy-in for demonstrating the value of design within the organization? Or can you share examples and ways you have successfully built momentum from a bottom-up approach? Or maybe can you balance those? How do you do it within your team? Do you need C-suite buy-in? Do you need their support? Or do you do bottom-up? How does it work? What is your experience?
Yeah, great. Thanks for the question, Katrina. I think we always turn and ask ourselves, if there's someone in the business that can be your advocate, understands the bigger picture of what you're bringing into that impact, what is that demonstration of value you're trying to understand, and what is the ultimate outcome? Knowing that yourself, believing in that self is the first step, I feel. Like, I think when you're going into leadership, it's knowing the confidence to know this is a vision. These are the examples that we're trying to set up, whether it's a new division or team that you're building in the business unit. What does it look like? How do we add more value? How do we work better with our partners in that? And that all relies heavily on the relationships you build, as well, as I mentioned earlier, like what we'll see in their eyes, the benefit and the buy-in from their point of view. I have used really great tools in the past, like a partnership model canvas, and it's just understanding what their investment is in the process to get the buy-in that you need, whatever that might be it more funding in an area of business unit that you're trying to build for products, research, or headcount, or a direction, the strategy. So seeing what that partner might need, there are advocates in the space who know what that vision might be, and seeing what they see in that same vision is really critical. So knowing that and building that story with them will help get that buy-in for whatever you need. I certainly feel if there is, challenges along the way with those key stakeholders, certainly in the C-suite, it does help a lot to have people individually know that vision and take them along that journey, talk them through what that outcome is, what you're measuring to. It's a language of outcome that they're ultimately usually after, whether it's financial outcome, whether it's strategically sitting on our group strategy wheel, and is it aligning to that? Is it also suiting the direction in the business of where we're going that you're reaching that buy-in for? So I think those elements, finding that partner, building the outcomes and understanding what you're trying to measure as a result of that will help in space of what you're trying to achieve. And there's many tools, like I mentioned, just that partner canvas and knowing who your partner's in, who will buy into it first, and then taking everyone along that journey as well.
Thank you, Maria. I think this is great, because sometimes we talk so much about empathy in design, but we need to really understand the language and having empathy for our executives sometimes, right? I think this partner canvas helps a lot to do that. Look, we have time for one more question, and I'm going to be bringing one more question from the audience, and I'm going to be asking this one for you, Michael. I think that you tapped a little bit earlier about this, so I think you're going to be the right person to answer. So it's from Richard Mark Smith, and the question is around remote designer leadership. And you were mentioning a little bit that before. So what do you think are the biggest challenges design leaders face when managing teams and projects remotely?
I guess I get very lucky at IBM. We transitioned into a remote working model very, very quickly at the beginning of COVID, and I think we had a pretty good community of people who's willing to experiment the way that we work. So I think so far we're doing all right. But of course, there's a lot of challenge when you have designers and resources, and even non-designers, right? When on the project you have people all spread around, across the world. I think one of the most important thing is empathy. Really, as a designer, you are if you own the only designer if you're a designer, if you're a design leader on the project, you got to be the one who first practice empathy. And when I said practice the empathy, it really means by trying to be a good human being, understand people are working in different time zones, trying to understand everyone who's maybe working from home. Oh wow, my computer keeps dropping. That's crazy. Every time I speak.
That's an interesting moment.
Yeah, I gotta find a new way to stand it. But anyway, I think really the empathy is to understand people work in different time zone, different model. So you need to be able to understand their challenge. And I think that whether you are a design leader or a leader, I think that's very, very important when you're working leading a project remotely. And another big challenge, I think, is as much as we like to work remotely, sometimes, especially from a consulting perspective, you need to have some sort of on the ground people and experts and people who you can rely on, and you need to find those people. And recently, I've been working on this project with resources with designers in Hong Kong, designers in mainland China, and designers in Taiwan. Luckily, we in the same time zone except me, in New Zealand. But so the first challenge that I had, in terms of people having different time zone and way of working, is okay. It's not too bad, but still, even people from these three cities, we have very different way of working. So that empathy part, understanding, being a listener, I think that's very, very important. But also, the second challenge is because our client is in Taiwan, so we needed to have someone who's on the ground who have the FaceTime with the client. So I think that is very, very important. I mean, as much as we work remotely, we are still human beings. We prefer this kind of in-person interaction. So find people who can be, if you are not in the same city, in the same location, find people you can rely on. And I think that's what leadership is all about. Understanding people, listen to people, and find people you can lean on and rely on and trust them. I think that's the most important thing.
Thank you, Michael. I think that's really interesting. I think I'm just going to add one thing that I was discussing the other day, that I think it's important for remote kind of relationship and collaboration and design work and managing teams. One thing that we learn is that when we are working remotely, everything you do needs to be intentional. And as a leader, this is harder, right? Because you don't have anymore like the coffee moment where you kind of chit chat and kind of see the energy of the team and understand if someone is struggling. You really need to be intentional to create these moments, to hear it. So it's not going to happen in serendipity. You need to create those moments. And for remote collaboration, everything is like this. You need to create those moments in order to capture these things. You're not going to be, it's not going to be an environment, a rich environment where things happens and pump and kind of show up in front of you. You need to chase them. You need to create those moments to kind of capture what is going on, what are the challenges, what are the struggles, and these kind of things. And I think this is a bit different to what we were used to before, everything being 100% remote, right? Because even if it's hybrid, you could have maybe those moments, but if it's 100% remote, this is a bit different. So I just wanted
I like what you said, intentional. I think that is a very, very important word. You need to ask very intentional questions. You need to be very intentional with your feedback and your direction. I think that is, I love that. Yeah, well done.
Thank you, Michael. I think this is something that we have been learning, right? It's not something that we know exactly, but we have been learning as we go. So I just we are out of time. It was super quick because this conversation with these three amazing leaders, of course, would pass by very quickly. So I just wanted to say a big thank you for all of you, Maria, Rich, Michael, and for all the participants for joining us from the most various locations here in APAC and maybe out of APAC as well. Thank you so much for joining. I hope this was an informative session that inspired you and maybe kind of open your mind for other things. So in the course, as you know, we're going to be talking about design leadership and talking about all of these realms of design leadership, like we were mentioning before. This was a glimpse to the level of conversation. This was the start to kind of get in your head what design leadership means, what you can learn about, but it's going to be much more. Is an intensive and very comprehensive program, 12 weeks. We're going to be learning the different facets of design leadership and how to become a better design leader. So it starts in March 14th, as I mentioned before, it goes up until June 11th. Join us, please. And we are offering for everyone who attended today a 15% discount. So you can use this special code, Design Leadership Learnings, and it's going to be valid until January 25th. In case you have any questions, please contact Luna Pigato. She unfortunately is not here today because she is in the time zone of North America, but she is our program manager, and she can answer any of your questions either through email, or you can set up a call with her or with myself. I'm also one of the program coordinators. I'm more than happy to kind of chat with you and join us. I think it's going to be an amazing season 2. There was so much learning in season 1, and I think it's going to be even more in season 2. So join us. If you have any questions, again, kind of send that to us. If you are interested in learning more about design leadership, we have an ebook on design leadership. So download this free. You can learn more about design leadership. And then just a big thank you for everyone. I hope you enjoyed. Again, for the panelists, thank you so much for your time. It's January, we're kind of coming back, but I know that everyone is already busy, or you wanted to, I don't know, enjoy your summer. So thank you so much. It's really valuable. We are very, very happy to be able to discuss. And I always learn so much with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Michael, Rich, everyone.
Thanks, Maria. Nice to see you, Michael. Nice to see you, Maria.
Nice meeting you, Maria, Rich, and
look,
Sophie. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. It was really amazing. I'm going to be staying like 5 more minutes. So if you have questions and you want to ask them now, I'll be here. If not, just send us an email or kind of any kind of means of communication with Luna or on the website. we are always kind of open. Okay. Thank you again, everyone. It was a big pleasure, and I hope to see you very soon.